So in the last newsletter, we talked about customer and item price groups that have recently been developed. So in customers, there is a field called category, customer category, and that can be used for pricing as well as the customer price and customer discount groups that have always been there. But the customer category is the code that we introduced to automatically create vehicle inspections or quality control check sheets during that, which I won't touch on in this one. So obviously it lends itself, if you're categorizing customers for vehicle inspection purposes, you might also use that category for pricing.
So that category code is not used for pricing, it's all for checklist?
It is used for pricing now, yes.
So is there any difference between using that or the old-fashioned method?
No. You can use one or the other. So you could arguably, for a simplified version, just use that. You could categorise people as trade and retail, offer trade customers a discount of a certain structure, set that up, really simple, and it's just going to work. But if you want to start getting complicated, you might have people who have specific groups or discount structures on top of standard, and then you can start using the other features to expand on it. There's no right or wrong whether you should use a price group or a category code or whatever. It just depends on what you're trying to achieve.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So in items, there is a concept now of item price groups and item discount groups. So I'll show you how I can update these. So this next feature we did talk about in the newsletter, but it's probably something that none of you have looked at yet, and it's really, really powerful. So if you were setting up, for argument's sake, an example I used in a video I released recently was tyres. So if I search for V16 markups, let's say I'm going to set up all customers for the item price group of, there's not one, so item price group of tyres, 15-inch tyres. So I've set up the group, and then you can see here the item count. There is no items in this category. So if I click Update Items at the top, I can say that I want these items to go into the new price group of 15 tyres, but obviously if there was more, I can select more. And then I can choose an item number, or I can say items with a rim size of 15 inch, and that is obviously from, if it was a tyre. Then you have this additional tyre fields fast tab where you have all these information for tyres as well. So that's why we use it as an example. So any of those fields in the item card can be used to set filters here. So find items of a certain category, click OK. It's going to look and tell you there are 100 items that match that. Click OK, and it will then put the 100 items in that price group. So if you have already got filters or brake pads, etc., you can start to quickly, en masse, put groups of items into price groups without having to separate them out into different categories and so on and so forth. So I can set that item price group of 15-inch tyres will get a, if they buy at least 2, then they will get a markup or a cost percentage, etc., etc., as you move along. Yeah, minimum markup value, percentage, or value, standard stuff. So we have also added customer price group here in the source. So we've historically had so all customers or a specific customer or a price group, which is what's always been there, but now we've got customer category. So you can say customers in the category of trade get these deals, so on and so forth. Okay?
Yeah, can I just ask a question, Greg?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So, obviously, I understand if people have already got filters or brake pads or whatever built up.
Yeah.
That's fine. But if you've got like a price file from AAG or whoever you're using, ECP or whatever, when those parts come in, they come in pre-built as just a generic part. There is no group. Have you found some other way around that? Or?
Yeah, you're talking about items that are in your catalogue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes and no. So, honestly, right now at this moment, if you've got a catalogue in there from AAG, because of the recent development and the speed that you can now create items, like for brake pads, it probably isn't worth having that catalogue if it's simply part number description. So we can just delete them from if you want. But we are in the midst of changing what's required. So historically, the catalogue has required you to define a template in advance, which of course doesn't suit, because we can't define templates in advance for 100,000 items and just put them in. No one's going to sit there and do that. So yes, we are changing how that works so that we don't require a template, so that when you create an item from a catalogue, it then asks you what template to apply on creation rather than on importation.
Yeah.
However, to be honest, catalogues are best suited for items with a large amount of data, like a tyre, because not many people bother putting in all of the rim size and profile, which you should, but I can understand why people don't. But of course, if you can get a tyre file from a supplier, it makes a light work of it, doesn't it? And the point with this is that tyres should be categorised in the item category of tyre for reporting purposes, and therefore it makes pricing tyres difficult. However, now with item price groups, you can set up different price groups for tyres. They can all be in the tyre category, and each different type, you can have premium tyres between 0 and 15 inch and budget tyres between 0 and 15 inch, and apply your categories en masse between tyres based on those features.
On that as well, last week I downloaded our parts file to Excel, and I literally searched in bulk for like brake disc, and I changed the category to brake friction, and I did it for brakes, cam belts, filters, and that then backdates all the data. So now I can, on my item analysis, I can see the margin for filters, brakes, cam belts, and things like that. So that's worked fairly well so far.
Yeah. Right, so that's customer categories. The other thing I did talk about, just on the basis of organising items now, is if we search for item categories, what you guys don't really realise is that when you enter an item and you create an item card and you get offered up what template you want to use for this item, there's quite a lot of setup in the background for that template. It does look like you're just picking a category, but you're really not, and that basically any field and more than you can see in an item card can be set up in a template. So that, in a second ago, I went to an item and I called it a tyre by sliding the slider. But of course, if you pick the template for tyre, it tells it to turn that slider on automatically by setting it up. So item categories are not the templates, but to simplify the process, we created this Create Item Template button from the categories. So this setup that is here now is very similar to the setup that is in new systems, but a lot of you who have come from been with us a year or so will have much smaller item category templates. So this might be more applicable to you.
Reece?
Yeah.
The item categories, I've got much smaller because obviously I come from a while back. What's the reason for splitting them out? Is it for reporting? Is it for that, really?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was thinking I'd like to see margins per category as well, so I need to set up more categories, don't I?
You can set up more categories or start using the groups. Right now, because the groups are quite new, pricing groups, they're not mentioned in Power BI, but I believe we are planning to, as you know, Power BI gets updated quite regularly, and and features will catch up. So creating categories if you want to look at reporting will help. But of course, having it automated makes sense, because what you don't want to be doing is creating the item and then having to go in the item card and changing this. You might have one so you've got filtration there, but that doesn't say, that's not air filters and oil filters and fuel filters.
Yeah.
So on that basis, we could take filtration, create an item template, say, right, I'm going to use filtration as an example, which is this template.
Yeah.
Then the new template, I'm going to call it fuel filters. Give it a description. Sorry, that was a code. Then give it a description.
Yeah.
Then give it an item category code. So here we're setting up the template. We're saying copy filtration, call it fuel filters, put it in the category of, and we could then create a category called fuel filters. Yeah, so create a new category, fuel filters. Yeah, and then while I'm there, stick it in a price group or stick it in a discount group at the same time. Yeah. So I'm saying copy this existing template, create a new template called this, give that template an item category code of this, and tell this template to assign items created by it with these discount groups or price groups.
Yeah.
Click OK, and that creates the template that you see when you create items. And also at the same time, you've created a category also, and we can now see that category is used by one template.
Yeah.
But you might have, So we're trying to simplify with this new development. It was trying to simplify that process.
I might be being a complete spastic.
Yeah.
What's the advantage of this? Because I just create parts. Every part I do, I've got parts and tyres. That's it. So what's the advantage of this extra workload or setting it up?
Mainly for reporting.
Okay, cool. Okay, that's fine. As long as I understand. I was just concerned that I've been doing something wrong for years.
No.
For the system. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So if you say, look, now going forward, I want to start. You're just using parts now.
Yeah.
The reason we've got these basic ones in there is it's really quite common for people to have batteries and filtration and friction and suspension separated. Obviously parts markup on filtration items is normally vastly different to brakes and suspension. So if you categorize it, then you can be more structured on reporting, and then you can use either item categories for pricing or price groups or
so what in the pricing matrix you can use the categories to put different markups in different categories. Yeah?
Exactly. So
if I give you an example, Sean, I've got a customer,
Yeah.
massive customer. They spend like 120 grand a year with us.
Yeah.
And typically they buy all genuine Toyota parts.
Yeah.
Now we have an agreed markup on those parts. So that customer, all of those parts need to be marked up by the same amount. But the same part for a different customer might be different. So me, that gives you a very specific thing that I can do.
I see. Okay. Yeah. All right. I understand that.
So in Mark's case, he would say customers in the category of, special Toyota category, or arguably just pick the actual customer. But he might have 5 fleet businesses that have the same deal, so he'd create a category for them. So customers in that category get items either in the price group or perhaps in the category. So depending on so the same way we can choose an customer, all customers, and customer price group or and customer category, we can then do an item category, an item price group, an item discount group, and the same for labours.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah.
So a popular one. So if I change over now to V16 prices, the feature that I know some of you are doing, but I think it's incredibly powerful, and not many people. I wanted to talk about this in this webinar because I know some of you know about it, but it really could be. Well, I think it's a fantastic feature, and I think it's a good stepping stone if people are looking to increase their labour rates. You might decide that actually you can start sneaking up your labour rates on certain brands.
Yeah.
So in prices now, instead of markups, I'm in pricing. I'm going to say that for all customers, for my labour group of...
You know what Phil Miller's question is going to be, don't you? Can I do it for RS cars, please?
No.
Sean needs to get on that as well, probably. But
Yeah.
I can't filter by model yet.
No, we can't filter by model yet. So I'm doing labour group because that will I might have several different standard labours. So I'm going to do labour group for standard labour, but I could do an individual labour or labours within price groups, etc. And then I can set makes. So I can say for Mercedes, and if I wanted to, I could say, most people leave that at 0, but you could say once they've bought more than 4 hours, it changes value, etc., etc. But I can say for Mercedes, 70 quid. And then I can run the same again and say for, Volkswagen, Audi, Skoda, and the Skoda could be 50 and Audi could be 60 and so on and so forth. And that will just automatically, when you add a labour line, or in this example, when you add any labour that's within the group of labour, it will just automatically apply that price to the job sheet. And that's obviously in addition to, not in addition to, different to the labour rate you may have set in that card.
So, Reece, if you buy a part for the first time,
yeah.
So how would you create that item card, bearing in mind all these new doodads? Because at the moment, obviously, you go in and it auto does it. You don't open the item card up anymore, do you?
Exactly, and that's why it's important for me to show you now the item category and the item template creation that I've just shown you, which I can go over again if you want. So I'll just do it from a job sheet because it's easy. Right. So if I create...
So you would have Misc.
Yeah, let's just say I've got that Misc item, say I've got the part in now, this could be a purchase order, say I make up a random part number. Do I want to create an item card? Yes, please. It will then ask me which one. So I have filtration there, and I have fuel filters at the top, which is I just created a minute ago.
Mm-hmm.
So if I click fuel filters, it's just created the item now. But if I open that item card, you'll see that the category code is fuel filters. So all of that information was filled out by the template because I created it from the category. The item card used to open when you created the item, and then you'd have to select parts and then choose from here and go, actually, this is a timing belt. Mm. So we've taken 2 steps out of the equation now. If you want to start categorising your items, then it is worth...
Yes, and in reality it's no different. It's no more longer-winded. I was looking at it thinking, I see what you're doing, but surely when you're bringing your item in now, you're going to have to go through and select 3 or 4 different things before item card's ready, but in reality you're not.
So you can have the extra benefits of the more complicated data structure, but you do need to just invest that little bit of time in creating your categories and then the subsequent template for the category, because it's the template you see when you create the item. There are 3 tables involved with pricing. We've obviously got prices, markups, and discounts. Hopefully they're pretty self-explanatory. Does anybody want me to go into any one in particular, or are you all okay with that?
So are you saying, prices is what it costs me, markup is how much the categories of the customers I want to be marked up, and then the same for discounts? Is that what you're saying?
Prices is for setting a price for something. So most people use prices for setting up their labours.
Right.
Because you would set different labours based on different scenarios. For argument's sake, you might say, after we've done 10 hours on any brand, we start to knock £5 an hour off the labour because it becomes.
No, I don't think so.
Or what, but that's where you would set those sorts of things up in pricing. But of course, they can be done for anything. They also can be done for items and such like. So pricing is more about the fixed price of setup of items and labours. Markups then is all about marking up on either the cost price of the item or the price in the card, which is done here. So don't forget when you're setting these up, there's a markup base, and by default it's unit cost when you're setting them up. So the unit cost would be the cost in the card, but most people should be changing it to unit cost in document, so that it marks up based on the value you type in when you're creating it. Because you would usually be creating it based off a live quote. Okay. We introduced minimum markup quite a few months ago now, but I don't think we really talked about it. There was obviously a need. People wanted to, mark up bulbs 100%, but make at least £5 on them. And of course, a 20p bulb. So that helps. So that's a pound minimum markup, and then a percentage or a value. Yeah. So has anyone got any questions on that so far?
Yeah, I've got one.
Go on.
Service packages. If you've got a fixed labour cost in there, like per hour, and you've got a brand that you want to charge more for on the labour, does it pull it in from the service package, or will it change it to what you put in there?
Okay, so good question. Service packages. Right, let's open up service packages, and I'll go through this real quick with you.
Reece, while you're in it, can I ask you a question as well?
Yeah, of course. Let me do this one first.
Yeah.
So, service packages are, or should be, either a fixed price package or not. So if it is a fixed price package, because it's got this slider on the bottom, then it will stay fixed price unless you intentionally break it, which you'll be warned about. So if you're going to say to me that we've got a service package built where when we add wheel alignment, if it's a Mercedes, then it needs to be 30 quid and not 20 quid, then I would say that your service package is not fixed price. And what you need to do, if you want it to be fixed price, is create a new version which has the wheel alignment at £30 for Mercedes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So, and because people are going to say, okay, but that means I've got to create a lot more versions. And yes, you do. If you're creating fixed price service packages, you need to have a version for every variation, because you can't use the matrix because it's fixed price.
Yeah.
But we did, if you remember, very recently copy has been there for a while, so I can create a version, then just copy it several times over and then make slight amendments instead of recreating the whole version every time. And then copy from allows you to pull a version from a different package into this package, sorry. So if I create full services, and then I want to create full services for premium marks, which are a different price, then I create my full services, and then I can copy those versions from full service into a new package called full service premiums, and then have conditions that include the premium brands in those versions and exclude them, of course, from the cheaper versions, and therefore you get your pricing. Have I blown your mind? Make sense?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah,
it was more like for stuff like lower arms and things like that.
Exactly.
We've got a service package built. As long as it's not fixed prices, then it'll pull in.
If it's not, So if it's not fixed prices, then it will pull in. And the thing to remember is, if it's not a fixed price, in fact, we changed it recently to make it easier. So if I turn that off, so if it's not a fixed price, then this pricing here means nothing.
Yeah.
Because when we add this to the job sheet, we will add the items and labours, add these codes in, and then calculate these prices based on who the customer is, what the vehicle is, what categories are they in, and then what pricing matrices and markups and discounts are set up. And we will recalculate the lines at that point. If it is fixed price, then we ignore all of that and we put on what you've put here. And you can see here when we go fixed price, we have this extra column enabled, which allows the quantity changed. So ideal for oil. So when I add this, it's a fixed price service. So I want these in and I want to charge £10 for oil, but I obviously need to put, for stock control purposes, I need to change the quantity of oil once I know how much this vehicle has taken. So by ticking that box, when I change the quantity from 1 to 6.5, it will just change the unit price to reflect whatever that is, 6.5 as £10 divided by 6.5.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was a reasonably recent change also.
Reese, Leo's asked a good question.
Yeah.
Leo said about using Misc parts. If you've got different parts, would you have to do Misc Breaks and Misc Cambo to be able to use the item category markups for doing a quote? Right. So I presume he's saying about putting if you've got a different markup for brakes than you have for oil filters, if you do 2 Misc lines, they're going to be the wrong price, aren't they?
Yeah, I think you'll only apply the price when you bring the part into stock if you do it off a Misc line. So do you need a Misc brakes allocated to the brakes category so that it picks up the brakes markup when you're doing a quote?
Absolutely, yes. So it's something I did with Tim. I did it with you, I think, when we set up. You've got Misc items for each category that you have?
Yeah, I've got different titles or different categories. So I've got like F parts, are factor parts, D parts, are dealer parts. So that's your start point that I use.
Yeah. So if we go to I'll have to create an estimate in this system. 1 second. If you are going to start pricing differently for different categories or different groups, then you'll need something to trigger that, assuming you're using Misc items. So you can obviously create Misc filtration or Misc filter. So create a new item for it, call it filtration, and then there's obviously something wrong with the setup on there, but and then have this, make sure that the settings in that card match the settings of your old Misc item, because there is let me show you it. Where is it? Oh, it's because there's no customer on this, that's why. Right, 1 second. So you'll all know that you can't post a Misc item, and I can let you in on a secret now and tell you could if you wanted. So you can't post a Misc item because the general product posting group for the Misc item is Misc no post, which is the error you've all seen. So if you were going to create Misc items for quoting,
nightmare now, isn't it?
yeah, if you're going to create Misc items for quoting purposes, I would advise that you go and open those cards and change the general product posting group to Misc non-post, which you will all have because you will have all had a Misc item, and that will just stop people accidentally posting that part number. You also need to, with your Misc item, make sure you turn off these here, allow updates. This should all be no on a Misc item, so that it stays a Misc item in that category with that description and so on and so forth. Yeah?
Yeah, if you say you created Misc Breaks, and then you had your markup on there, and let's say you put that onto a quote and it came out at 60 quid as a sell price, but then the advisor changed it to like 50 or 70 for whatever reason. When you then bring that part actually into stock, what happens to that sell price?
So the scenario is that you put a Misc part on and it calculates based on markup £60.
Yeah.
Yeah. and then you, through a purchase order, update the item.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, that's why we like the Misc item. So, assuming that, and where this was born, was that markups would typically be set on Misc items. And then, because then you don't have that problem when it changes. So if you have a markup that says, right, Misc Breaks is a 60% markup, when you change the item on the purchase order from Misc Breaks to brake friction or whatever, that part then doesn't have a markup and therefore nothing changes. That unit price will stay at 60 or 50 or whatever it is you've previously set. Of course, if you change the part number on a purchase invoice to a part which does have a markup, then the system will naturally go and apply that markup because that's what you told it to do.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah? So
basically you'll just stay with whatever figures in that box at the time of the quote if you're using the same category.
Correct. Yeah. So if you have a very strict pricing structure, then there's no problems. And if you have a very loose one, then you should do it around Misc. Obviously, if brakes are a 25% markup and they're a 25% markup and that is that, then you're reasonably safe to apply markups to actual categories, because when they change it from Misc to brakes, it's just going to reapply 25% markup and everything will be fine. But if you're the kind of business where prices are just guessed each time, which is fine, then it would be much safer to use the Misc items, because then you can ensure that the price isn't updated when they change it to an actual item.
But as Leo said, though, that if you created Misc Breaks,
yeah,
then that becomes irrelevant, doesn't it? Because it's already using the same markups. If you've got a category of brakes using that markup, but you're using Misc Breaks and that uses the same markup, it will be the same thing, won't it?
No, so you would use Misc Breaks, which will be
brakes and suspension.
Brakes and suspension. Right. Let's go to markups. Right. All customers item Misc will have a 100% markup, minimum of 50 quid. And all customers right. So that's the kind of structure that we do for Misc. But so we're not doing the category, we're doing the actual item itself. So
what about if you read the quote for a part that's actually in stock or something?
Then the markups wouldn't apply. So then you would have the probably that the item price would be in the card. Not pretending to have all the answers. It's just these are the features we have.
I remember when I looked at this a few months ago, these were the problems I was having getting my head around. Because when you bring that Misc Breaks into stock, it's then going to become part of the category of brakes, isn't it? I can't quite remember now the problem I was experiencing, but if you use that part again, and there's but anyway, I'll think about it.
Yeah, so what you're saying is, I mean, this problem of let's run through buying it in. Oh my god. Right, so 100 quid. apply £200 markup. Let's create the purchase order. And it only cost, well, let's say it cost 500. Sorry. Then obviously it's because this item doesn't have any markups. It's left it alone. So,
right.
So your question is again, when you come to sell this next time, you're obviously going to put. Am I getting it right that you're?
Yeah, that's the thing about it. It's not necessarily an issue if that. I think the problem is if somebody manually overrode that price so it didn't reflect your actual settings and your markup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
first time round.
How often do you know how often you end up in a situation where you know the part numbers in advance?
Yeah, that's what, as I was saying. That's what I was thinking when we're building quotes. I guess we're not really ever going to use fixed numbers as such. So, yeah, I was thinking about it as well.
Some people, like Sean, will say, "Well, I know all my part numbers because I'm specialist," and that's okay. And maybe you do, but even if you know all your part numbers, should you use them? Because I mean, even being a specialist, Sean, part numbers get superseded, so you might. It could very well be a different part number next time. I mean, it's going to be 99% the same part number, but they put a prefix or whatever, don't they? So, so what's the harm in using Misc all the time? But yeah, obviously this is very in depth, and there's been a lot of thought behind lots of different aspects and how lots of different companies do work. But if anyone has any ideas on making it better, we always listen, as you know. But it needs to work for everyone. Yeah.
So is there no retail price attached to that part now? That pad?
Well, because I hadn't bought it in. So if I put 500 there now, assuming the setup's right, yeah, there you go. It's going to add that in. So next time I put that item in, it will put the 500.
What's the setting for that? Is that somewhere you can switch that on?
Yeah, it is. It is in purchase and pay.
Reece, when you finish, I've got another question I just remembered as well.
Yeah, okay. There's 4 tick boxes to remember. In purchase and payable setup, there is update unit price in item card from purchase document. So, obviously, right? Yeah. Then you've got vendor number, which is from purchase document. And update unit price in job sheet from purchase document. Okay, so that's all from purchase and payables. That's all from purchase orders and purchase invoices. Then in service management setup, there is this one, update unit price in item card from job sheet.
I'm just looking for it now. Yeah, update unit price. Cool.
And in inventory setup, there is update item description from documents.
Right, okay, inventory setup. Thank you.
And all of those settings are so those are like the global settings, but they are all also options within item category templates and within the item cards themselves. So a lot of those options you definitely want to turn off for things like miscellaneous parts, where you're using the same part number and constantly changing descriptions and prices and stuff. I see John has asked a question. I'll look at that in 1 second. But just to cover something off, what I wanted to do in this webinar, basically to highlight to everyone that there is a massive amount of functionality hidden in the background here that can be utilised if you want it. What you need to do if you want to use it is to sit down first and think about your end goal, what you need, what you want from it, and then we are absolutely more than happy to work with you to implement that in the business, but it is almost certainly something we'd want to schedule with you, and so that we can sit down with you, understand what you think you want, work it out, is it going to work, and then we implement it. Because if you start bit and bobbing it, it can cause you problems with why is it changing this price here and not here, and so on and so forth. We're absolutely happy to help anyone with any of this setup, but it is really worth thinking. It's like setting up online booking for the first time. What do you want to happen once it's launched? Because there are so many connections going on. So, sorry, 1 second. John's just asked, do people use the cost of a part in Misc Item when creating an estimate? Yes, they do. If I've understood that correctly, John Donnellan, if you're still here, then yeah, you are. Then we would normally expect the flow would be, standard normal flow would be that you set markups on your Misc items and then add a Misc item to something, phone up the supplier, put the cost that they give you over the phone in the unit cost of the Misc item, let the system apply the applicable markups, quote that to the customer, and then go on from there. I think that hopefully answers the question you asked.
That's my question, yeah. Thanks, Reece.
Thanks. Did someone else have something?
Reece, may I ask a question?
Of course.
The way you've just described how we created invoices is correct for us at our place. Yeah. But I noted earlier that I think maybe it was Leo that said he changed the where everything was in the item categories so that it was useful in Power BI. How would you bulk do that? Did I hear rightly that it goes backwards in time?
Yeah.
Like a time machine.
Yeah, it does. So when Power BI refreshes, it refreshes all of your data. So if you change something from a year ago, it will change and come through. So if you bulk change customers, items, whatever, it's going to reflect next time it refreshes. Obviously, the more you change, the longer it will take to refresh next time. But that's how that works. Changing item categories.
Yeah, because we got a load of rubbish from when we started and didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
So it would be quite nice to tidy it.
Yeah, we had the same problem. We had consumables and there's parts and all sorts. So be careful with the consumables because you have to change your product posting group as well. But it worked quite well.
Yeah.
Didn't take much time.
Nothing more than a couple of weeks.
Nothing more than a couple of weeks. Look, changing item categories isn't something we've created a template for. The basis of you can get it, what we've created here with create your categories, then create templates to use the categories. The templates, sorry, 1 second as well. There we go. In configuration templates, these are the templates that you're creating using the wizard on the page before. So you don't need to come here to create templates. But if you want to, let me show you. So if you want to set up templates, I would recommend you go to item categories. Item categories and either create the codes and then create the templates, or you can, as I did in the demo, create the code as you do this, as you create the template. Now, the reason for that is when you create an item, you're asked to create it, you say yes, and you're presented with a list of templates. Now, this order can be changed to suit. And this order would be changed by going to config templates, configuration templates, and you have these buttons, move up, move down. So fuel filters is at the top. So if I rally that all the way to the bottom, there is a video on this, by the way. But obviously, these are all the templates. So you've got one in here for customers, and you've got one in here for vendors and other things that happen in the system. You can ignore those because they're filtered out. When you're creating an item, it's obviously looking for a certain type of template. And you see now that filters is right at the bottom. So if we're going down the route of efficiency now as well, if you're going to create a lot of templates, it might be worth also considering, what's more common, where are people going to click, how are they going to appreciate the flow, put some people like stuff at the top, some people like it at the bottom, it depends how. I always go to the top of the page, but that's obviously customizable. Okay. Was there something else?
So I was sort of thinking that there's loads of oil filters in my factor parts where I'd like them in filtration.
Yes.
How do I bulk get those out then? Is it one by one?
No, I would. Sorry, I forgot about that section of your question. If you want that, then like we did for Leo, I think, is Leo still here? Yeah. I'm 99% sure Lee helped you out with that, didn't she, Leo?
They sent me over an Excel file of the whole parts database, and then I went into the description row, and I've searched in that row, for example, filter. Then that obviously displayed all the filters, and I just bulk changed the category to filters, basically.
Yeah. So
you then changed it, and
we put it back.
Yeah. So I sent it back, and then they just uploaded it, and that was it.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Can we do that for me then?
Yes. Do you want me to raise a ticket, or will you just fire a ticket over?
You raise one. I've had a glass of wine.
Okay. I'll get that done. So what you'll need to consider is just a little disclaimer. We'll export your items and send you a list in a format that is usable for what the purpose we're using.
Yeah.
If you send it back in about 4 weeks' time, and in that period you've changed stuff, then when we import it, we're going to import what you've given us back, if that makes sense. So obviously, if it takes a long, if you
just crack on is what you're saying.
Well, I would say if we give it to you, then I wouldn't go making changes. I'd wait for us. I'd do that, finish that, then make your changes. 2 items. You can set up your templates, of course, and start creating your new items in the right way going forward. But if we export a list of items and you change 50% of them and send it back, when we put that in, it's going to update everything to suit that template. So if you update half of the spreadsheet and then update the other half yourself, we're going to undo that work when we put the spreadsheet back in. Does that make sense?
It sounds like something that needs to be decided to do and then do quite quickly, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's basically what I found, don't manually change any items. Just kind of do it all in the spread. Create. First thing to do is, like I say, research, create all your categories and templates. And then I did one weekend, I did a load, sent it back, and then I asked them to send it again the following week, and just turn it back quickly. Yeah.
So, and Leo's idea was good there. It would be worth you doing first. Okay, so I'd like filtration, I'd like to separate, I'd like air filters, fuel filters, whatever, and set all that up yourself, or get some help from us, or whatever you need, but get those set up so that they're there ready for when we change and import that file.
Right, okay. I thought it sounds good to me.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Is that it? Anyone else? Some people have just listened for an hour and said nothing.
I think they're asleep.
Yeah.
Oh, you're still going, Reece?
Yeah, still going. Thanks everyone for coming. And look, and to reaffirm, if anybody wants to use any of these features, have a little think about what you want, give us a call, drop us an email, whatever. But it's a little project and should be treated as such rather than just a quick, simple change. Okay. Everyone knows how to contact us if they need it. Thanks for your time tonight, guys. I do appreciate it because it hopefully means that we're not so scatty during the week. With this, we can structure these kind of developments, and hopefully you're all enjoying them. And I'll keep trying to do one a month on something constructive.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Thanks.
Bye bye.